Mary had a little lamb. The fault.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
If you would have to debate the current president, how does that conversation go without becoming reactive? How do you stay on your message and not get caught up in his crazy?
That's good, Deb. That's really good. Well, first, it's very important that anyone who presents themselves as a leader and wants to be a leader will speak like a leader, and that means speaking with integrity. It means speaking truth. It means speaking in a way that expresses and indicates some level of interest and concern in people other than oneself. And so right there, we will see a great contrast. And it is about also having some concern for the future of our country. You know, we are at an inflection point. We are in the world and in our country. And the people of our country, the families of our country, deserve to have leaders who are focused on their needs, their immediate needs, their long-term needs, the hopes and aspirations they have for their children and grandchildren, and speak to that as opposed to speak to the lowest common denominators and base instincts and speak in a way that is about inciting fear as a distraction from the fact you're getting nothing done except helping the richest people and the biggest corporations.
Amen, sister, amen. Go tell it on the mountain. Go tell it on. Oh, she killed it last night. Kamala killed it. She killed it. That was amazing. It was worth staying up and sitting up, past the 10 o'clock mark. It was really, really worth it, I have to say. I will play some clips from Kamala. I'm still getting used to saying her name correctly, because I haven't given it the effort it deserved for a very long time. But, Kamala killed it last night. Howard Schultz got killed last night. Trump has more articles in the newspaper today about how fraudulent he is, including the fact that the United States of America is no longer in the top 20 democracies with clean, non-corrupted government. I swear that's true. The entire system of democracy in the United States is literally being torn apart, torn limb from limb by the liar in chief and his henchmen. All of them, his little, group of merry bandits who are very keen to, take whatever tranches of money are left and put it in their pocket. It is just so unbelievable. And now, did you see Matt Whitaker yesterday? Because we were broadcasting when he, the Justice Department, Christopher Wray, the FBI, they indicted Huawei, the Chinese company that puts out cell phones that spy on everybody. And so they indicted him. And Matt Whitaker, for some, ridiculous reason, is our acting attorney general. And he's a very bad actor, I must say. And he gave a little, presser. He gave a little open press thing. And, of course, the press wanted to know about the Mueller investigation since Roger Stone had been arrested. By the way, today, Mr. V for victory. Mr. V for I really do have a vagina. And you're going to find out. You're going to find out that, Trump isn't going to be able to, me. Roger Stone is looking for the best deal, obviously. He's, talking about, his raid was like the Bin Laden raid. His raid was like the El Chapo. Can I just say, I don't recall Bin Laden giving a press conference, giving the V for victory or vagina sign that Roger Stone was able to give just hours after his arraignment. I think Osama Bin Laden was dumped in the Arabian Sea, never to be heard or seen from again. I think that was his demise. El Chapo, he says, it was just like El Chapo. El Chapo went down he's still on trial in New York. 5 people ended up dead in his raid. He escaped through one of his very sophisticated tunnels that a stupid wall will not have any impact on, deter. It's just like, but that's how El Chapo got away. 5 people were killed in that day. And Roger Stone, on the other hand, they went, FBI, open up, warrant. Same? Is that the same? I don't see it being the same. The reason why they did this, the reason why they have people in the front of the house and the back of the house, because he's a lying sack of crap. He's slimy. He's dirty. He makes everybody he likes having people believe that about him. He says it himself, that he's the devil incarnate and he lives to be known this way and this is his identity. And they were afraid that either he would flee or that he would destroy evidence. So they made sure that nothing came out of the house. That's why they did it early in the morning when he was asleep. I mean, it's not the same. But anyway, so you have this, and then Whitaker says that, that's the end of the investigation. It ends with Roger Stone. There is no way. I read you that indictment. We read it. We read it out loud. We read all 23 pages. We unmasked the identities of the company number 1, person 2. There's one person that we can identify in the indictment, that because there's 2 things: high-ranking Trump administration officials, plural. So we know one is Steve Bannon. We don't know who the other one is. And then a Trump administration official or a Trump campaign official directed, which is the word BuzzFeed got hammered on, right? Directed Roger Stone to reach out to WikiLeaks and find out what else they had. And we don't know who that person is. Otherwise, we read that and this thing is that is not over. That has so many more people in it that we don't know about yet, that are yet to be indicted or yet to be cleared. This is just ridic. And did you see? I don't know if you saw Whitaker yesterday, but I wanted to play this for you again before, in case you did see it, because I wanted to point out something to you. Look how this man had a rigorous case of flop sweat. Oh my God, did you see him? Just sweat. We're having a polar vortex. And he is sweating profusely. I mean, you poor guys in the Midwest. You know where Jessica is? Jessica? She works for MTV. She's, she just got promoted. She's supervising producer on Teen Mom. And she works on 2 shows, Teen Mom, OG, and SG. Anyway, she is assigned today to do an outdoor shoot of one of the teen moms who decided to move today. They're moving. This is, I'm not supposed to, don't tell anybody. And it's outdoors, and it's minus 17 degrees where she is in the Midwest. Minus 60 wind chills. So, of course, it's time for the idiot anti-global warming trolls to say that they don't understand climate change. Let me explain this to you in a sentence, if I can. The polar vortex used to stay up at the Arctic Circle, and now the jet stream has been guided further south by climate change in the upper atmosphere. And now the Arctic, the North Pole weather is able to sink further and further south. Now, could somebody just tweet something like that to Donald Trump, who tweeted this morning, "What the hell is going on with global warming? Please come back fast. We need you." Normally, I would say no one is this stupid, but Trump really works at it. I mean, he gives it everything he's got to go to. And Roger Stone, too. I mean, they are playing you like you're just a dumb little rock. And Whitaker, I don't know what his motivation was to talk about an ongoing investigation yesterday that, Mueller doesn't leak. You could see Chris Wray's little eyebrow go up in the background. But, he decided to tell you that he thinks that the Mueller investigation is almost over. It was the weirdest thing. And then, I watched it on my big HD TV. And I saw all of the little droplets of sweat on his forehead and his brow, and it was like, wow, he was freaky.
Before you came into your current role, you were publicly very critical of the special counsel investigation. Now, since you have received your briefings, is there anything that you've seen or read that gives you concern about special counsel Robert Mueller or his investigation?
I've been fully briefed on the investigation, and, I look forward to Director Mueller delivering the final report. And I really am not going to talk about open and ongoing investigation otherwise, but sort of the statements that I made were as a private citizen, only with publicly available information. And I am comfortable that the decisions that were made are going to be reviewed, either through the various means we have. But right now, the investigation is, I think, close to being completed, and I hope that we can get the report from Director Mueller as soon as possible.
If you showed up at TSA with flop sweat like that, they would call a SWAT team. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, look at him. He looks so nervous, and he looked like he was auditioning to play Matt Whitaker on Saturday Night Live. He didn't. I mean, it was just like, wow. This was really, really flop sweat. This was really, really unbelievable. Now, I don't know if he's lying or if he's merely deluded or if he's of the Trump mindset, which is if I say it often enough, it will come true. I don't really know, but I thought that was just so bizarre, so strange because of the amount of terror that I saw in this acting attorney general, who will not be our attorney general for, ever. I mean, he was the chief of staff to Jeff Sessions. That's who he was. And so, pig in a poke, he became our acting after, Trump fires Sessions with absolutely no replacement. No replacement in mind, had absolutely no idea. All this time, he's threatening Sessions' job. Years. It's been a year and a half. Threatening. Didn't have, what a manager he is. Oh, the skills. Wow. No, he plays a businessman on TV, just like Matt Whitaker there yesterday was trying to play an acting, he's a terrible actor, terrible attorney general on TV. Just so weird. But anyway, so he didn't have a replacement. He fires him, so we had to go with the chief of staff to the last attorney general of the United States, who is a Trump loyalist or proclaims to be. It was so bizarre and so weird. And in reading the indictment of Roger Stone, who, by the way, pled not guilty today, shocking, because he wants a pardon. And then if a pardon doesn't come, this man will flip and spread. He will open like a flower, just like a Georgia O'Keeffe painting. He will just be, in full bloom and ready to be picked. Sorry, I'm a gardener. But I mean, this is crazy.
Things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I have a couple of big problems with what Matthew Whitaker announced yesterday. The first one is it's a complete amateur move. It is something that, as Laura said, is absolutely not done for good reason. It is a strategic fumble. It is a tactical giveaway to announce we're almost done investigating. It's like being in the middle of a poker hand and announcing, I'm almost done betting, guys, right? You're going to incentivize targets and witnesses to drag their feet, to try to wait you out. Look at the Rudy Giuliani, Robert Mueller negotiation that's been going on over a sit-down interview. Now Rudy's going to see this and think, okay, if they're almost done, if they're under time pressure, they're not going to subpoena my guy, because that's going to take months in the courts. So I'm just going to tell them, no dice. We're not talking to you, and there's nothing you can do. Also, Allison, as you said, it creates false expectations, this notion of close to being completed. I can't tell you how many times I've been privately, confidentially, close to what I thought was the end of an investigation. I'd never say it out loud. And then something new pops up. Right. You get a new witness. You get a new cooperator. You find new evidence, maybe like in the search that was done the other day of Stone's homes. And the investigation can take on a whole new life, go in a whole different direction. And so it creates a real problematic expectation.
Yeah, I mean, every legal analyst, probed it last night. They all probed. And they all said the same thing. What the hell was he talking about? Why would he be saying this if Mueller is still negotiating for a sit-down with Donald Trump? What is he saying? It's almost over, and so Trump just hold the line, don't ever sit down with Mueller. I mean, what is that? And also, obviously, more indictments are coming because we read the indictment of Roger Stone. There are people that are unnamed in the indictment that have yet to be charged, obviously. And we know that there's been let's say, doubt cast by Congress members who have heard testimony from guys like, Donald Trump Jr. There has been some doubt cast upon the veracity, and for those of you who, are still in Cult 45, the honesty of Eric Prince with his back channel Seychelles meeting with Russians. There's so many people that are yet to be dealt with in this investigation. I mean, this is just so bizarre. It was just so strange. It was just, you have the assistant to, here's a little small fry, who's not really that small of a fry, but here's this guy, Andrew Miller, that my guys know. Why? My guys know him because they booked, before they came to work with me, they booked other radio shows who will go unnamed because they thought it was big fun to talk to that lion Roger Stone. They thought it was just a scream. And I was like, you don't give guys like this oxygen, okay? Because one of their tactics is to keep on putting the false narrative out in the public. Just say, repeat. It is the key advertising rule, right? Repetition is the key to advertising. Oh, speaking of advertising, Herky Jerky still has that $10 off thing. Today is the 29th, so we only have a couple more days in January. Please do purchase some delicious the sticks, okay? I love those. The bacon, put it in a salad, put it on a salad. Please do, go and buy the wares of my friend Jason at herkyjerky.com. Thank you very much. Repetition is the key to advertising. Herky Jerky, herkyjerky.com. That's why you mention it 3 times in one commercial, and you play the commercials every single day. So if Roger Stone is out on the airwaves and he's saying the same BS every single day, people start to say, well, nobody would lie that much. Because you wouldn't lie that much. And you project your honesty, your integrity, your decency onto other people. You just assume that you would never lie that much about issues of national security or receiving stolen goods from a foreign hostile government that the intelligence community said had hacked the DNC in April and May. You wouldn't meet with them. You would, you just assume that your decency, your integrity, your honesty is what other people do. Now, I got to tell you, while most of us do the right thing when no one's looking, or hope to be that good and work towards that goal of doing the right thing when no one's looking, which is the level of integrity that you would teach your kids to have. It's what you want in a person. Roger Stone is not like that. Donald Trump does not have an ounce of that in him. When no one's looking, this is when they will do whatever they need to do to enrich themselves. For them, there are no principles, there are no morals, there is no ground that they, stand upon and loyally defend. They go wherever the wind blows, wherever the money leads. Follow the money, and you'll understand their motivation. And so you had this booker, you had this guy named Andrew Miller. Andrew Miller was Roger Stone's, assistant, right? And his defense attorney named Paul Kamenar actually talked to CNN and told CNN that he got an assertion from Mueller's team that made clear to him that Robert Mueller and the Department of Justice are considering an additional indictment. And he feels like that indictment might be of his client, Andrew Miller, who, by the way, stands today in contempt of court. Because he was subpoenaed to testify in front of the grand jury. And he refused to do so because he's Roger Stone's, little protege. And he thinks that he should be as evil and as dark and as sinister and as defiant and as dishonest as Roger Stone in order to be Roger Stone. That's his, joy in life, is thinking he could be as crazy as Alex Jones. He could be as nasty as Roger Stone. He could be as money grubbing as Paul Manafort. Manafort, Stone, their stupid lobby shop that lobbied for every dictator that ever walked the face of this planet. And so he refused to testify while he was held in contempt of court. And so in the hearing, the judge made clear to Andrew Miller and his attorney, that Mueller was looking for information that Andrew Miller had about Stone's communications with WikiLeaks and Russian hackers at the time that they were disseminating the stolen goods. And they want him to testify in front of the grand jury, and he has said no. So now he stands in contempt of court, but Roger Stone's been indicted. Now he's saying you know what his case is? You know what his lawyer? I mean, this is such a this is a circus. Okay, this is just distraction, right? Look over here while I make cards appear over there. So he's saying Mueller was illegally appointed. That's his case. And it's in front of the D.C. Circuit. You know, the D.C. Circuit has had this case since November. They better decide, because Mueller would like to talk to Andrew Miller, and in fact, he wants him in front of the grand jury. So if the D.C. Circuit says you need to testify and he still doesn't, okay, there's another indictment. And if he does testify and he lies, there's another indictment. But the D.C. Circuit has the case. Now, his lawyer, Andrew Miller's lawyer, said, I can only speculate on why they need my client. The Mueller team, the spokesperson for the special counsel, no comment. The Justice Department guidelines say, and this is interesting, and I want you to try and comprehend this, that a grand jury can only hear evidence after a person is indicted, only if the grand jury is continuing to work on new charges for that indicted person. Can't be to hear the same old stuff, right? And so far we know he's been indicted on 7 counts. We know it was obstruction of justice, witness tampering, and lying to Congress. So there must be new charges. And the new charges would be the conspiracy. And Andrew Miller turned over all his documents. He turned over everything. And after the Mueller team saw what Andrew Miller had, they want his testimony. And he's in contempt of court. So the guidelines say that a grand jury can't go over the same stuff after a person's indicted. It has to be new charges they're working on against that person that's already been indicted or against additional targets. So I'm just saying this is one guy, right? And we're not even dealing with the Eric Prince. We're not even dealing with the Junior. We're not even dealing with Trump himself. We're not dealing with a whole host of people. Plus, everybody forgets who's cooperating. Everybody forgets Flynn. Everybody forgets Gates. Everybody forgets Weisselberg, the CFO of the Trump Organization. There's so much left to do. So I don't know why Whitaker did what he did yesterday, but man, he did seem scared. Gotta say. Jeff in Denver. May I help you? How may I direct your call? Jeff in Denver.
Randy?
Yes.
I'm here.
It was me.
Oh.
It's
gotta
me.
Love cell phone.
It's me. I have soft keys. You know what I mean? They're soft. You have to really press.
No worries. Well, it's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Of course.
Knowing how this administration is dark, and I can never go dark enough, I'm going to pose to you about why Whitaker had serious flop sweat. I don't think I've ever seen that much flop sweat ever.
I'm glad you noticed.
Official.
I thought I was the only one that saw it.
No, I thought somebody dumped a bucket of water out of it, sent them out. I'm like, what the hell?
I'm telling you, if you were going through, some screening process, or if you were at Border Patrol, or if you were trying to enter the country, or TSA, they would call the SWAT team if you appeared that way.
Yeah, you would be gently excused to the side as quickly as possible.
Right.
So that being said, I start going as dark as I can, because that's what this administration does anymore. I'm going to pose to you that Whitaker got briefed. I'm not even sure if he got briefed fully, but got briefed by Mueller. And I'm wondering if he's like, oh, my God, this guy is a full-on traitor. And, at this point, I truly think a lot of the upper-tier Republican leadership is complicit with him.
Yeah, I do, too. I think, obviously, a lot of House members are, Devin Nunes being one of them.
McConnell. I cannot believe that McConnell isn't in there.
It's weird. It's very weird, the whole thing.
So,
but yeah, that's probably a good bet, is that he finally saw the evidence. And
does he suddenly stress out going, oh, my God, I'm shooting my mouth off and I shouldn't be, and my mouth is running and my brain should have been engaged?
Maybe that, yeah, I don't know. That would take conscience, and to work for Donald Trump, I don't think you could have one. I think what he's scared of is that he realizes that Donald Trump is an agent of a foreign government, and that it's provable. And he's like, oh my God, I'm going to go down with this, this bunch. I mean, you'd be, you'd be better off being an alcoholic or a cocaine addict, and then your collapse wouldn't be so public.
And in a context, too, it just showed how out of his depth he truly is.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that the next day he's like, I'm resigned, I'm out of here. This is not my shit.
But that's what I'm saying. That would be the honorable thing to do, is to resign and send a message to everybody that, oh my God, the evidence is overwhelming and this man is so dirty and you can't even believe what went on. And the election was obviously tampered with and whatever. But yeah, he would resign because that would send a message, but he has no conscience. So that's why, I think he's like, oh dear God, this man is just, freaking filthy. And I'm a young guy and I don't want to go to jail for the rest of my life.
Oh, I get it. So that's my dark theory, but every time I don't think I've gone dark enough, I'm proven wrong.
I know. I have so many callers that used to tell me this stuff was going to happen in the end, and I used to tell them that, you're too dark. This isn't really that bad yet. There's nothing new under the sun. And now there is, because this is the culmination of the corrupt GOP's agenda. It's always been, to take all the money and keep it for themselves and starve out the people, just like Venezuela, and make the one big giant deal to steal the last tranches of money and get the hell out of Dodge. I mean, this is the natural result of Newt Gingrich, of the Republican Revolution.
Oh yeah, my eyes were really open when I read Naomi Klein.
The shock doctrine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The Chicago boys. It's a continuous script that they have got a great playbook by.
They do, and they've been doing this, incrementally for years and years. They've been doing it in other countries, obviously. But, Chile was the example she gave. But they're doing it here now. They're doing it here.
Oh, yeah.
So
I see it, and people look at me sideways when I say, you need to read some of these things. Malcolm Nance, Naomi, read a newspaper. Even the Wall Street Journal has stuff that is, showing the pattern of what's going on.
Oh, yeah. I mean, all the newspapers do their very, very best to bring the news to you, the real news, the fact-check news. They have ombudsmen. They have fact-checkers. They have, they run the risk of, defamation and libel and slander if they don't get it right, which is why they get it right. And people just don't want to read it. They just, I could actually tweet something to somebody, and if it comes from the New York Times, they literally will reject it. And so I have to produce the government document that the New York Times relied on, or like in one case, it was about the indictment of Roger Stone, and people on the internet are saying, well, Roger Stone didn't work on the Trump campaign. And I'm like, it was for plausible deniability. He's been friends with Donald Trump for 40 years. He's the one that dreamt up the wall. Him and Sam Nunberg run on this, tell everybody Mexicans are rapists, get everybody, there's a lot of white supremacists out there that are very quiet and under the, turn off the lights and the cockroaches will come out, play this card, say you'll build a wall and Mexico will pay for it. This was Nunberg and Stone, obviously giving Donald Trump. And if you look, there's a movie called Get Me Roger Stone that is amazing, where Roger Stone will say something and then like a week later comes right out of Trump's mouth. So I sent them an article showing them that Roger Stone and Trump have been, it doesn't mean anything, it's from the New York Times. So then I sent them the indictment of the Russian intelligence operatives that Mueller wrote, that drew you a picture, a drawing from the hackers to the Trump, the Trump campaign, and then Roger Stone's. I said, so these are the actual indictments. Read them, do the math, and get back to me. And of course, they go dead silent because they can't read that many pages.
And thank you. Now I know what you're referencing. Get Me Roger Stone. I always thought it was just that line from that HBO movie about Bush stealing the election down there in Florida.
Oh, just watch.
And I forget.
Yeah, there's so much in there.
Stone.
No, and Oh yeah. And you know what? Manafort is in that movie, and you know what Manafort is saying? Manafort says, I can't play it because it's HBO, but Manafort says in there that you can't tell where Roger Stone ends and Donald Trump begins, and Donald Trump may be running for president, but this is Roger Stone's philosophy that he's going to sell.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Randy, I hear the music.
Yeah.
I'll let you be.
Thank
and
you.
Finish up.
Okay. And I'm telling you, there's no separation except that, Roger Stone is a dirty trickster who they kept on the outside for plausible deniability, and that's been popped. But you have these cult 45s, you got the Al-Qaeda's the base, you got these crazy maggots. Wow, it's just amazing.
Connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. Well, I must say, I don't understand who Mr. Mueller is accountable to. If he's not accountable to the Congress and he's not accountable to the executive,
Rod Rosenstein,
and he has broad authority because our special counsel law has expired, you can see the kind of travesty that you saw last week. I'm 66 years old. I do not own a gun. I do not have a valid passport. I have no prior criminal record. I'm charged with non-violent process crimes. To storm my house with a greater force than was used to take down Bin Laden or El Chapo or Pablo Escobar, to terrorize my wife and my dogs, it's unconscionable.
Well, first of all, those glasses are a fashion felony. So, I mean, honestly. And those FBI agents weren't even getting paid. So, how motivated could they have been? They're motivated because you're practically charged with treason, you traitor. That's why. I mean, and this is his defense now. This is, poor, pitiful me. He was on with Michael Cohen's client, Sean Hannity, last night.
You did not steal anything. You did not conspire to steal anything. And the Pentagon paper.
Wait a minute. He didn't conspire. He conspired to receive stolen goods. What's wrong with you people?
This case, my reading of it is very clear. By the way, the New York Times published WikiLeaks, as did all these other publications, is that as long as you don't conspire to steal, you can print, you can go with stolen material of somebody else.
What, you're a journalist now? Roger's a journalist now.
Correct?
Yeah, yes, they're trying to criminalize legitimate political inquiry. They're trying to criminalize free speech, which is really what this is about. Look, I honestly believe that they are going to try to charge the president and the vice president with some hooked up frame of Russian collusion. That way they could make Nancy Pelosi president, she could make Hillary Clinton vice president, and then step aside. It's a nightmare, but I think that's what they have in mind.
You do not. You're so stoned. Just go smoke some more pot, will you please? I mean, you would have been better off, like I said, with alcoholism or cocaine addiction. At least then your collapse would not have been so freaking public. Don't try and get some sympathy out of people. I don't recall Osama bin Laden holding some triumphant press conference on the courthouse steps after his raid. I don't recall El Chapo being able to give the V for, whatever that is for. I mean, that is just so unbelievable. This is just disgusting. Honestly, man. And he keeps on saying it and over and over and over because this is how you get a message out.
I think the way I was treated on Thursday is extraordinary. I think the American people need to hear about it. I'm 66 years old. I don't own a firearm. I have no prior criminal record. My passport has expired. The special counsel's office is well aware of the fact that I'm represented. The idea that a 29-member SWAT team in full tactical gear with assault weapons would surround my house, 17 vehicles in my front yard, including 2 armored vehicles, a helicopter overhead, amphibious vehicals in the back where my house backs onto a canal, and that I would open the door looking down the barrel of assault weapons, that I would be frog-marched out front, barefooted, and handcuffed when they simply could have
Roger, let me just
contacted me.
Let me
I think people need to know about
that. Yeah, but as you know, it's pretty standard for that to happen. They were concerned.
No, actually,
well,
it's not.
That's what our Justice
standard at all.
People. So they say were concerned you were a flight risk. They were concerned you might tamper with evidence. They were concerned you might destroy evidence. So they did that. And even you, by your own testimony, by your own admission, said that the FBI agents were courteous.
You did.
So let's get on.
No. Let me address that if I may. First of all, I was released on a surety bond on my own signature. here, which is evidence that I was not a flight risk. And secondarily, I've been under investigation for 2 years. I've destroyed nothing, but if I were going to destroy evidence, wouldn't I have done it a long time ago? They could simply have called my lawyers, and I would have turned myself in.
That's a question.
This was an expensive show of force to try to depict me as public enemy number one, the OG. It's an attempt to poison the jury pool. These are Gestapo tactics.
Oh, come on. I thought you were 66. 66-year-olds don't say OG, okay? They don't invoke the original gangster. You dirtbag. You're a dirtbag. You were treated like a dirtbag. You've always been a dirtbag. You're a lying dirtbag is what you are. You're practically accused of being a traitor to your nation. And yeah, everybody thought you might destroy some evidence over here. And he said, oh, to storm my house, to terrorize my wife and my dogs is unconscionable. I seem to recall a text message between you and my friend Randy Credico where you said you would steal his dog. His little Bianca, the little cute, adorable dog. Too cute to be carried by, even Paris Hilton. It's adorable. I seem to recall you calling him all kinds of names. I seem to recall you being a tough guy. So they treated you like a tough guy dirtbag, because that's what you are. And those boys, they weren't even getting paid. I remember the raid of Elian Gonzalez. You remember that? For a little 6-year-old boy, they came with freaking, war gear. Now, that was a little bizarre. Manafort was raided. Michael Cohen was raided. What makes you think you're so special, you dirt bomb bag, you old 66-year-old OG? I mean, this is his, attempt at sympathy. But I'm telling you, his indictment, it's a speaking indictment. Now, if it was the end, he just would have, you could have had an indictment written that just said that he lied to Congress 5 times. But no, Mueller's team goes through painstaking effort to explain it to you and me. Painstaking effort. It could have been a cold, hard, brief document that just said he's being charged with X, 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 and X, and under this statute and that statute, and that's it. Everybody wonder what it means. He didn't do that. These are speaking indictments where there are people in those indictments that still haven't been arrested. Oh, poor me. I spent my whole life playing dirty tricks. And now I've actually gone to, Mike Pompeo calls WikiLeaks a foreign organization, a foreign terrorist organization, by the way, because they will release American sources and methods and put in jeopardy American sources and methods. And so Pompeo, who last time I checked is, in charge of intelligence, said that WikiLeaks was a foreign adversary. Same thing with Russia. And here they are, talking openly to WikiLeaks, going, I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do anything wrong. Are you freaking kidding me? And your assistant is still in contempt of court. Just saying. Dave in New York?
First of all, I want to say 215-479.
John in New Mexico.
Hi, Randy. I wanted to wish you a happy birthday. We love you.
Oh, thank you.
First time, long time.
Oh, my God.
Long time, since the Air America days.
Oh, wow.
I actually was calling because I never thought I'd say this. I was an extra in Sicario 2, Day of the Soldado. And I just wanted to thank Trump because he seems to be promoting our movie. He is totally devoid of reality. He's mixed up the plot to our movie to fantasy.
Listen, this man is such a fraud. You know what Donald Trump really is? He's made of lies and Russian bots and fake Twitter accounts and orange spray tan, all held together by fantasies of duct tape or electrical paint tape.
Amen, sister.
Seriously, the man is a total fraud.
All the things that he's been saying, the things about the prayer rugs and the supercars and kidnapping girls.
God, the prayer rugs in the desert. You know how long ago Snopes debunked that story? Years and years ago.
But they're all plot points from our movie.
They are? They're in Sicario? I hadn't seen it.
Not Sicario, the second one, the Day of the Soldado.
Oh, so Sicario was so fantastic. They made a sequel.
Yes.
Wow.
And if you look for me, I'm kind of sitting right behind Benicio del Toro in the mall scene.
In the mall scene, okay.
Anyway, I just wanted to send love from the chat room, and I love you, and I wish you the best birthday ever, you and Howard and everybody, and just keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Shout out to the chat room. Hey, everybody. Hey. Matt in Tahoe.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hey.
I talked to you about a year ago. My same concern is who's going to be going into prosecution. And I know that everybody is glad to see that there are things moving forward, but if you look back at Iran-Contra or the Nixon era, that type of thing, who's actually going to be prosecuted?
Well, I will say this is not Nixon-era stuff because that was a burglary. That was a break-in into the Democratic National Committee, and the cover-up is really what got him, and there were slush funds and money that was used to pay these burglars. That's why this is a foreign adversary hacking into one of our major political parties in the United States and then transferring the stolen goods to another foreign adversary, WikiLeaks, a guy who is so distasteful that he can't leave an embassy. He can't move around the world freely because he will be arrested. And you've got a presidential campaign for the Republicans that actually worked to get that stolen material through that foreign adversary that can't leave the embassy. This is not that. And this is also not, this is more like Iran-Contra, which was, a fake war. It was a real war that was prohibited by law. It's kind of like that, except it was a plan hatched in the United States to wage war on the Northern Triangle of Central America, where we're still paying for that war. So, but this is like treason. This is like traitors. This is, the most disgusting thing that America's ever seen, with foreign money pouring in and foreign help being taken and foreign adversaries talking freely to campaign officials and to the son of the president and sending somebody who was indicted, to a meeting in Trump Tower to give dirt, which we did see deployed, and efforts to reach them on Billy Bush Day when that tape came in. I mean, this is bizarro world. This is like a movie.
Do you think that we're going to see the light of day on some of these people who helped this happen?
What do you mean the light of day? What is the light of day?
Well, a number of people in Congress, the Republicans in Congress.
Oh, those people.
Yeah, and SCL working with Cambridge Analytica.
That's another one. I mean, you don't hear much about. You don't hear much about Brad Parscale. You don't hear much about the Mercers. You don't hear much about Bannon. There's a reason for that. There is a reason for that. The idea that Mueller hasn't spoken to Eric Prince, that he hasn't spoken to Brad Parscale, that he hasn't spoken to Junior, tells me these guys are targets.
And for people that are following the story, how far down the line does it go? Who is involved in this? And a bunch of them left town, and a bunch of them don't seem to have any kind of explanation. They just
who left? Skip. Oh, you mean the people who refused to run again?
Well, the people who had contact with Russian money, and it's just like, it just goes on and on and on.
Well, who are you referring to? Like members of the House or the Senate?
Yeah.
Like Jeff Flake? Who are you talking about?
Well, and Walker and even people at the state level, a whole bunch of them seem to be connected to this victory in 2016, and I don't think there's a lot of conversation about.
Well, this is
how
why
many people succeeded and won in 2016 who were not Trump.
Well, this is why it's so important that Mueller is inside the NRA, looking at the foreign money that was funneled through the NRA, an organization that most Americans think, wrongly, has a ton of money. Membership in the NRA is like nothing. And they're just propped up by the gun manufacturers, as you know. That's kind of their lobby. But all this money, more money than twice what they donated, in the last election cycle, $30 million. This is why Mueller is inside the NRA. Who got that money? How much did they know? What about those legislators that went over to Russia? What about them? What about Bolton? What about all these people that, were involved with Alexander Torshin, were involved in the prayer breakfast? The prayer breakfast is organized by members of Congress.
Well, they can do it correctly, and actually, a lot of people I know are lobbyists. But if they do it correctly, then that's one thing.
There is no correct way.
One thing that
there
does
is
come
no...
up on the national TV news is that this was stolen information,
right,
and then it was weaponized,
right, by another foreign entity.
Yeah,
right,
by an enemy. It's been 100 years that this has been the enemy of the United States.
No, I'm talking about WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks is a foreign entity. It is, because people see it on the internets and stuff. And, they know the name Julian Assange, and they don't know very much about foreign stuff. They kind of assimilate him to America. And he is not American. He's foreign. And the law is no foreign help, no foreign money, no foreign in-kind services, none of that. And let's remember, there is people believe, I can't prove this one way or another, but people believe there is a sealed indictment. Remember, somebody screwed up and a redacted document was sent in a way where you could unredact it with a keystroke because it was an idiotic way to post it. But it was a redacted indictment, and now we're led to believe that Julian Assange has been indicted under seal. This is so far from over, I can't even tell you. And how many false, narratives are we going to hear where we hear Mueller's almost done, Mueller's almost done, Mueller, and then Whitaker. Oh, my God, just the amount of sweat. Just the amount of sheer terror that crossed through his eyeballs there. And I mean, this is a man who could sell anything. I mean, he tried to sell hot tubs, to the disabled, right? He tried to sell products, that nobody wanted for years and years and years, and, was actually part of a scam at a patent company to scam our veterans out of their life savings to hire him to sell stuff that nobody wanted. So he could sell anything, and he just couldn't sell that yesterday. That was weird. That was really, really strange. So don't lose faith. I mean, this is hardly over. It's hardly over.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe it.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
I believe the solution, and I'm actually feel very strongly about this, is that we need to have Medicare for all. That's just the bottom line. And I'll say this, and this is, I think, why you're also asking this question. What we know is that to live in a civil society, to be true to the ideals and the spirit of who we say we are as a country, we have to appreciate and understand that access to health care it should not be thought of as a privilege. It should be understood to be a right. It should be understood to be something that all people should be entitled to so that they can live a productive life, so they can have dignity. And having a system that makes a difference in terms of who receives what based on your income is unconscionable, it is cruel, and in many situations that I have witnessed, inhumane. I have talked about my personal experience of my mother, who passed away many years ago, and going through the healthcare system with her. And she had the benefit of having Medicare, but not everybody does. And it is inhumane. It is inhumane to make people go through a system where they cannot literally receive the benefit of what medical science can offer, because some insurance company has decided it doesn't meet their bottom line in terms of their profit motivation. That is inhumane.
So just to follow up on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, to reiterate, you support the Medicare for All bill, I think initially co-sponsored by Senator Bernie Sanders. You're also a co-sponsor on it. I believe it will totally eliminate private insurance. So for people out there who like their insurance, they don't get to keep it?
Well, listen, the idea is that everyone gets access to medical care. And you don't have to go through the process of going through an insurance company, having them give you approval, going through the paperwork, all of the delay that may require. Who of us has not had that situation where you got to wait for approval and the doctor says, well, I don't know if your insurance company is going to cover this? Let's eliminate all of that. Let's move on.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's move on. Well, there, she said it. She's for Medicare for all, and I'm for Medicare for all. And, we could have this, or we could have President Starbucks. Got heckled really bad last night. Poor President Starbucks. It's just not going to work out for him, I don't think. But he ripped Kamala Harris. He said that she's trying to destroy an entire industry, and what industry is next? The coffee industry? Really?
You compared Democrats' proposal to universal health care akin to a border wall in 60 Minutes. Is that what you mean?
Well, you just played Senator Harris as saying she wants to abolish the insurance industry. That's not correct. That's not American. What's next? What industry are we going to abolish next? The coffee industry? I mean, the Republicans want to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. I don't agree with that. The Affordable Care Act should stay and it should be refined. But to think we should get rid of the insurance industry, again, this is exactly the situation. It's far too extremes on both sides, and the silent majority of America does not have a voice. And that's the voice I want to give.
If you have a winning message, why not have that debate within the Democratic Party, of which you were a member up until recently?
Because I would have to be disingenuous to try and run as a Democrat.
Why?
There are millions of people in the country who no longer affiliate themselves with a Democrat or a Republican. Here's the facts.
That's me.
42% of the American people today designate themselves as a independent person. 30% are registered and 12% affiliate. That's more than Republicans or Democrats. Let's give them an opportunity.
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm one of those people. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm a progressive, and I'm an independent because I haven't found a home yet. But obviously, the Democrats' proposals appeal to me much more than, hey, let's teach the Bible in grade school, or let's overturn Roe v. Wade. Which, by the way, there's something you don't know that's happening that I will tell you about before we get done today. But Howard Schultz and I are from the same damn neighborhood, same place in Brooklyn, same, he's from the projects in Canarsie. And I get that he's a very good businessman, and I get that emphasis on us getting out of that neighborhood was placed on education being the key that would unlock the door, although in my case, it would mean get a career because I wouldn't marry well because I was too smart. But running a business where you're the final say, and then you take a group of your regional managers and you put them in an office, and then you tell them these are the this is the rules from on high, and you deliver them to the store managers, and the store managers deliver it to the employees. That is not how government works. You're going to have to learn how to deal with an electoral college. You're going to have to learn how to deal with the Congress. You're going to have to learn to deal with the Senate, with a filibuster rule and a House full of 435 different opinions. This is the reason why businessmen are not the best men to run for president, because they're so used to sitting on high and declaring and decreeing the way things should go and blah, 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 and the price for a cup of coffee. I mean, you leave it to guys like this, and healthcare ends up costing you $2,000 a month. You leave it to guys like this, and a stamp is going to be $8 overnight. What's a cup of coffee at Starbucks? $5 for a cup of coffee? Used to be 2 bits. A cup of coffee. No, Howard, you're wrong here. We have an electoral college. And if you don't like it and you feel that it's depriving people like me who are independents from having a voice, then do something with your billions to start some sort of a constitutional amendment to overturn the electoral college, which was put in place to protect slave states. That's why it's offensive. That is the basic injustice that is done to the American voter, let alone machines that don't freaking function and registrations that have to be completed, 90 days in advance or 30 days in advance. And you can't do it the day that you want to do it because you didn't do it before. And, they move the polling place from the one that you had in the city to, outside the city limits, and you don't have a car because you live in the city. I mean, come on. Voting is hard enough. Do not split the Democratic Party, which has the corporatist wing. It has the middle-of-the-road wing. It has a progressive wing. It even has a little bit of democratic socialism in it. Cut the crap, man. And by the way, nobody is saying abolish an industry. He talked, I go, oh, so now she's talking about abolishing an entire industry. Really? I thought insurance companies insured anything. I thought they insured your apartment if you wanted, renter's insurance. I thought they insured your car. I thought they insured your house. I thought they insured. Just get them out of the health insurance business. What is so wrong with getting rid of a for-profit healthcare system and making it healthcare centered? Declare it a utility. What is wrong with that? And by the way, Medicare for all would not cover everything. You would still need a private supplemental policy, as you all know, because Medicare covers 80%. And so you'd still need a private insurance plan. Like, Medicare Advantage is one of those. And the reason why Medicare Advantage charges more is because they organized you. They go to doctors and they say to doctors, we can pay you more than straight Medicare can. And in order to get these people to be willing to pay more for their private insurance to supplement their Medicare, we offer them a gym membership or we offer them a pair of sneakers. And therefore, Medicare pays more for Medicare Advantage customers. Don't tell me that the insurance companies won't figure out a way to bilk people, even on the private end of it. Of course they will. We're not asking to abolish the insurance industry. It's ridiculous. They cover, you have movie stars. They insure their legs, for God's sake. The insurance covers everything. Art, hands, feet. It covers life. You have all kinds of life insurance. You got your term life over here. You got your end of life. You got your funeral costs insurance. If you're between 60 and 90, there's no medical, and you pay $9 a month to get insurance for when you die. They'll pay to put you in a box. It's just so unbelievable. We're going to dismantle the insurance industry? Really? Howard? That's just plain wrong. His goal is to apparently make government services as overpriced as Starbucks coffee, and to criticize Kamala Harris's Medicare for All stance, to say that we're going to abolish the coffee industry, and what are we going to abolish next? The coffee industry. I am for a free macchiato for all after paying $5. You should do that out of the kindness of your heart. But really, can you imagine a former Starbucks CEO becoming president? Every name will be called out at a Starbucks, right? You'll have collusion, quad over ice in a grande cup. Do you know what I mean? It's just so stupid. I don't know why CEOs think that they're qualified to understand how government works. Let me show you something. I'm going to show you something. You're going to say, why am I showing you this? Because this explains what a president is up against with an opposition party. So, we voted and we decided that Trump is a fraud. He's a failure. He's a phony. And we wanted to have some checks on him. And so we voted for a House of Representatives made up of Democrats. And the Republicans don't like it. So now they play their little institutional games. Now they play their parliamentary rules games. Now they play the deep game. Now they play the inside game. Now they play, a game that, on game day, only very, very few people know. Most people know the general game, But here's what the Republicans are doing. Michael Cohen is supposed to give testimony to the House Intelligence Committee behind closed doors on the 8th of February, next week. He was subpoenaed by the Senate Intelligence Committee to appear behind closed doors on February 12th. We don't know if he's still going to do his public testimony, which he said he was going to do before he was threatened by Giuliani and Donald Trump, and his father-in-law was named over and over in all these media appearances as being somebody that, the Justice Department ought to look into, ought to investigate. And Rudy Giuliani literally just sitting there saying, because his father is Ukrainian, holy crap, that necessarily means he's a mobster. I'm Ukrainian. Okay. I mean, it was just such an offensive thing to say, but they just, So Michael Cohen said that they've been intimidating him and threatening his wife, his family, his daughter. Donnie Deutsch talks to Michael Cohen every day and says, oh my God, the level of intimidation and threats on his family have exponentially increased. And this is why he canceled that public testimony in front of the House Oversight Committee, Elijah Cummings Committee. But we got a little bit of information yesterday that led me to believe that it's possible still that he will testify in public next week on the 7th. Now that's interesting because the State of the Union will be next Tuesday. If Michael Cohen testifies to the Oversight Committee, that testimony will be on Thursday. Then on Friday, he goes behind closed doors, we thought, at the House Intel Committee. Well, he may not be able to appear behind closed doors at the Intel Committee. Why? Because the Republicans are playing a game. What game are they playing? They're playing a game called, we won't name committee members on the Republican side to staff the Intelligence Committee. Therefore, the Intelligence Committee cannot proceed with its work. And its work is to hear witnesses. Its work is to take testimony. And it can't do its work if they don't put Republican members to complete the committee on the committee. Here's Jackie Spear earlier today.
So looking at the investigation, where it stands with House Intel, right now, I'm under the impression that House Intel has all the Democrats named to the committee, but you don't have all the Republicans named to the committee. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And it should be of no surprise to anyone that they are dragging their feet. They do not want this committee to start its work. And at some point, we're going to lose our patience and have to do something more dramatic if they don't actually appoint their members and allow the committee to organize and get started.
So what can't you do until they appoint their members?
We can't really do anything because we have been appointed by our caucus. We can go down and look at documents within the committee, but we really cannot do any work. Subpoenas cannot be issued, to my knowledge. There is no path forward for us to reinstitute the investigation until they organize on their side.
What does that mean for getting somebody like Michael Cohen back in front of the committee?
Well, very good question. And I think when all is said and done, we're going to have Michael Cohen testify before the committee one way or the other. I'm not quite sure how we're going to do it at this point, but I'm sure that they are doing their level best to try and prevent that from happening.
Damn right they are. So how do you deal with that kind of game? You can't make a decree and say this is what I want to have happen, and then, the Congress plays all of its games, and it has parliamentary rules, and there's a filibuster rule, and there's this, and there's that, and they have the power of the purse, and you can't spend a nickel, and blah, blah, blah. I don't, and Adam Schiff, the other day I played this for you. Clearly the GOP obstructed this investigation into Mueller when they had the majority. Clearly Devin Nunes was, a little spy. Clearly he wasn't interested in the fact that Junior had testified falsely, Eric Prince had demonstrably lied. He didn't care that Roger Stone had demonstrably lied. I mean, they didn't do anything. They didn't subpoena any documents. They didn't get phone records. They did nothing. They obstructed, right?
Well, Bob Mueller has the advantage of a lot of evidence that we don't. We were really circumscribed to what we could look at. For example, we wanted to try to compel some of the witnesses that Mr. Stone alluded to come in and testify. We wanted to try to test what Don Jr. and others were telling us. We wanted to get phone records. We couldn't do that, but Bob Mueller has been able to do that. And I would expect, George, that if there is a conspiracy to defraud the United States, a collusion indictment, it would be the last indictment that Bob Mueller would seek, not the first.
Right. So obviously, the Republicans don't want to take Michael Cohen's testimony. And one of the ways they could do it is to not reconstitute their side of the Intelligence Committee, which, by the way, today we had the Intel chiefs testify, and they contradicted Donald Trump's claims on Russia being a friendly. They said Russia is one of our biggest threats. That, Pence said ISIS has been abolished. They said, no, ISIS is still in their base form, and they're very dangerous. North Korea, he said, there's no more nuclear threat from North Korea, tweeted it out to everybody. They went, that's not true. They've done nothing to denuclearize at all. Pulling out of the Iran deal and the threat that, we face now because Iran is not under the Iran deal. I mean, they contradicted everything this president said. Now, you would want the Intelligence Committee to take testimony on those issues and find, and by the way, you know what there was no mention of as being a threat? The southern border. Zero mention of the southern border being a threat to the U.S. Zero, nothing, zilch, goose egg, squat, donut, nothing, nada.
He's live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
I want to ask you about Howard Schultz, the former Starbucks CEO, who says this weekend he's seriously exploring a self-funded independent bid for president. He told 60 Minutes that he thinks both parties are engaged in what he called revenge politics and not acting in the interest of the American people. Do you have any concerns that a very wealthy independent with a message like Schultz's could play spoiler in 2020?
Well, first I would say that I have a tremendous respect for Howard Schultz. When I was HUD secretary, I had an opportunity to visit with him. I know that he's done some impressive things in business. Obviously, if he runs, it's going to make an impression on the race. But I do share that concern. I have a concern that if he did run, that essentially it would provide Donald Trump with his best hope of getting reelected.
Absolutely.
Just the other day, there was a fairly comprehensive poll taken that showed essentially right now that the president has a ceiling of about 41 or 42%. In terms of support for him, no matter which Democratic candidate they polled against him. So his only hope, if things stayed the same, and that's a big if, is essentially to get somebody else, a third party, to siphon off those votes. Right. And I don't think that would be in the best interests of our country. We need new leadership. And so, I would suggest to Mr. Schultz to truly think about the negative impact that might make. The only other thing I'll say about that is that we can't both sides this to death. Right. It's not, yes, I agree that there are things that Republicans and Democrats do need to improve upon, but there's a real difference between any of the folks who have said that they want to run on the Democratic side and Donald Trump.
Really? So let's not split that vote. I invite Howard Schultz, if he wants to run as a Democrat. He's been a Democrat his whole life. But, the idea that, he would have to be disingenuous. No, you don't have to be. You've already said you're not for Medicare for all. Come up with a health care plan and put it on the table. Let everybody decide. I will tell you, this country, 56, almost 60% of us want Medicare for all. Almost everybody in this country now understands that we pay more for our health care than any other place on earth, that we get robbed on prescription drugs because we can't negotiate down the price because everybody isn't in the same pool, and we don't have a government to negotiate on behalf of all Americans the prices for prescription drugs the way the rest of the civilized world does, and that we don't get better outcomes for all the extra money that we spend, and that we still have 30 million people that don't have health insurance. We still have millions of people that are underinsured because healthcare providers have been restricting, making smaller their what do you call that, networks. I told you this year when it was open enrollment and I had to go buy a healthcare plan, I tried to get the cost down by joining one of the more restrictive groups. Remember, it was a Blue Cross Blue Shield policy, but it was called Select, and Select meant that it had a smaller network of doctors. Why? Because those doctors agreed to take less to see a patient than the options plans doctors. So their network was much, much smaller. Well, remember I had that thing going on with my bobian gland dysfunction, my disorder? And I needed to go to a doctor. No one would take it. No one would take that insurance. And I was doing it before the end of open enrollment. I was saying, well, right now I have options, but I'm going to have Select beginning January 1st if I need to follow up with you. And they said, oh, we don't take that. We don't take that. We don't take that. I can't tell you how many people said we don't take that. Now, if everybody was in the same pool, there would be no we don't take that. The doctors, the pharmaceutical company, everybody would take to see patients the same amount. That takes the cost down. You can negotiate prices on everyone at the same time. It also reduces administrative waste. It does a whole lot of good, and everybody gets great health care. Now, it's not 100%. You still have to pay for a supplement plan. So when Howard sits there and tells me I'm trying to destroy the entire insurance industry, I got to say, no, it's the greedy hospitals and the big pharma companies that you're protecting. Insurance companies will still have an insurance business in the healthcare business, but they also have insurance businesses in every other nook and cranny of your life. Stop it with that. But run as a Democrat. Put that on the table. Let's see how popular that is. I don't want a fragmented system that's incapable of controlling costs. I think that's a loser. But, maybe a CEO who charges $5 for a cup of coffee knows something I don't. I doubt it. The gains in the $30 million that got coverage are erased by the out-of-pocket expenses, the bureaucratic waste, and the profiteering by big pharma and hospitals. It's a ridiculous system. How many times have you gone to the doctor and the very first thing you get is this big clipboard? And on the clipboard, 8, 9, 10 pages, asking you the same damn questions the last doctor just asked you, and you're going to see a specialist or a subspecialist for the same problem. Really? We do this on paper? Really? We have our folders and our papers are in there and one doctor doesn't see what the other doctor saw? Really? I have to give you my disc? I got to bring my mammogram. I got to bring my MRI. I got to bring the little photograph they took after they took out my tumor. And they put these little clips in there to show you where your tumor was so that they can check that area again. I got to bring every single one of those with me all the time to next and next and next. So you go to the first doctor who takes the mammogram, and then you got to get your records from that person. And then you take it to a radiologist who's going to look even further and is going to do an MRI or a CAT scan or whatever. And then they create a disc, and you have to take those 2 discs and you got to bring that to the surgeon. And then the surgeon's going to create a disc because they're going to be the ones that take the tumor out, and they're going to put the little clips in, and you got to bring all those discs back with you to your radiologist who does your mammograms so she can see what the other 2 doctors pointed out and make sure that she's checking those margins every time you go, and she's creating new pictures. And then God forbid you have a recurrence, you got to go to her and get everybody's picture, which she doesn't have. She only has her This is a sick system. It's redundant. It's wasteful. It's hard on patients who, if you've gotten that far in the healthcare system, you're really sick. And this is the worst time to be asking you to track down your freaking healthcare records, your discs, your test results, your paperwork. It's the worst time. You are at your weakest. You are emotionally terrified. You are sick. Who needs this? But Howard, you got a plan, put out the plan. I want to see your plan. I want to know what you're going to do to take the waste. I want to know what you're going to do to take the clipboard out of the doctor's office. I want to know what you're going to do to bring, a fragmented system under one roof and negotiate for everybody in the system as President of the United States. I want to know. What's your idea? Because 30 million people are still uninsured and tens of millions of people are still underinsured. And a lot of people that have insurance don't know it's crap insurance. And a lot of people who have insurance aren't able to make the copays. I told you, when I finally went to the eye doctor, the ophthalmologist who takes medical insurance, because the optician that I saw, he didn't take medical insurance. I had to pay out of pocket. And then I went to the ophthalmologist, right? And you know what I had to pay? After a $2,000 a month premium that I pay, and a $6,500 deductible that I will hopefully not meet this year. I mean, because you got to be sick, right? And paying out of pocket for, my prescription drugs, unless they're completely generic and available as generics. The eye ointment the doctor wrote, it's a little teeny tiny tube. Everybody, who ever had this problem or any problem with the eyeballs, that they always give you this thing called Toberdex, right? It's like a little steroid mixed with, like Neosporin, basically, is what it is. But it's ophthalmology. It's an ophthalmology. It's for your eyes. I can't say politicization either. Oh, there I said it. That little tube was $212 for me, out of pocket. So I called her up and I said, is there a generic? Oh, yeah. You know what the generic costs? $14. That's after I gave her a $100 copay. So on top of all that, going to a doctor, if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to pay a $100 copay to see the doctor, $50 for the first doctor because they don't take medical insurance, then $100 for the next doctor, that's $150. Then the prescription, $212. So it's like $300-400 out of your pocket, and then you got to come up with your premium every single month. And if you miss it, guess what? You have no insurance again. This is not a good system. You got to be so smart. You got to know what you're doing. You got to deal with insurance. I don't know. Howard's family doesn't like me talking about. My family has no problem. I could tell you anything about them. Anything about them, they're like, oh, she's hysterical. She's one of us. But one of our family members is a doctor, and you know how he spends hours of his time every day? No, not seeing patients, which is what he loves to do. Arguing with insurance companies for women with 4th stage cancer to give her the pain medication that he's prescribing for her and not what they think she ought to have or not what they think she can afford. It's a very broken system.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Senator, many Democrats that I've spoken with agree that the primary objective for 2020 is to nominate the candidate that has the best shot of defeating Donald Trump. Some have also said that, given what occurred in 2016 and the current political climate, that a male nominee will have a better chance this time around than a female nominee. Would you please respond to this so that this man has a response ready the next time a man tries to mansplain why a man would make a better nominee?
Well, my first response, Robert, is this, which is that the person who presented that point really is not giving the American voters enough credit. They're smarter than that. The people who vote, the people who live in this country are smarter than that. They're going to make decisions based on who they believe is the best leader. They're going to make decisions based on who they believe is speaking truth. who is doing it in a way that gives people dignity, doing it in a way that elevates public discourse as opposed to bringing us to the lowest common denominator and base instincts. That's how the voters are going to vote. And that is going to be the basis upon who will win. And as far as I'm concerned, listen, I mean, in my entire career, I've heard people say, when I ran and ran as the first woman who would win, it's not, people aren't ready, it's not your time, nobody like you has done that before. I haven't listened, and I would suggest that nobody should listen to that kind of conversation.
Yeah, baby, yeah. I like her. I do. I like her a lot. Now, here's the thing. Roe v. Wade is quietly dying, and it might just die this week. What? I know it's not on the news. I understand it's not getting covered, and it won't until it dies. But here's what happened. There is a case in front of the Supreme Court. It has to do with a Louisiana law that requires, and this is going to sound awfully familiar to you, it requires that, quote, a physician performing or inducing an abortion, he must have or she must have active admitting privileges at a hospital that is located not further than 30 miles from the location at which the abortion is performed or induced, and that provides obstetrical or gynecological health care services. If that sounds familiar, it's because it's identical, word for word, almost, to the Texas law that the Supreme Court struck down. That particular case was called Whole Woman's Health versus Hellerstadt. Whole Woman's Health was a 5-3 decision. Now, that only adds up to 8 justices, right? That's because Antonin was already dead. And Justice Kennedy sided with the liberals and said, no, you don't have to have admitting privileges with a obstetrical or gynecological hospital in order to give Plan B to somebody. So they struck it down. But the Supreme Court does not look like it did when it was 4-4 after Scalia died. Now you got Gorsuch, and now you got Kavanaugh. And they have anti-abortion records that are all but certain to overrule Roe. And this is a vehicle to do it because the Supreme Court, the Fifth Circuit Court, the lower court, upheld the Louisiana law in defiance of Whole Woman's Health, in defiance of the Supreme Court striking down that law. The Fifth Circuit upheld it even after the Supreme Court ruled that that was not constitutional. It wasn't a law that you could enforce. So if the Fifth Circuit is upholding it, it's because they are signaling to the Supremes they want them to retake this case and rule a different way. They seem to be very confident that defying the Supreme Court would, A, bring that same case back to the Supreme Court, and now the Supreme Court is a different court and it would rule the other way. The dissent from the Fifth Circuit was outright in your face. The dissent said, you are ignoring the Supreme Court's commands. This is what the dissenter in the Fifth Circuit wrote, saying, oh, you got to be kidding me. The Supreme Court's already ruled, and you're going to uphold this law that we clearly have a ruling on, that it says that that provision is unconstitutional and a violation of women's rights, women's right to choose her own biological destiny? He wrote, the majority today fails to meaningfully apply the undue burden test on women, as articulated in Casey, that's an old case, and clarified in the Whole Woman's Health case. It fails to give the appropriate deference to the district court's opinion, essentially conducting a second trial on the cold appellate record. We have to hold our breaths now and wait to see if, with Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Clarence, and all the other lunatics on there, if Roberts will uphold the Constitution and a woman's right to privacy in her own being. Because that is our only prayer, to keep Roe intact. Otherwise, it's going to die quietly. It's going to wither away on the vine. The deciding vote last time was Justice Kennedy, who has been replaced, as you know. And we've got these two lunatic fringy guys on there. Now, I will tell you there's another one in Arkansas. There's an anti-abortion law in Arkansas that was allowed to take effect that is also at odds with Casey, that is also at odds with whole women's health. And that was a 5-3 before Gorsuch and before Kavanaugh, with Kennedy voting in the majority. So we have to watch the Supreme Court, and you have to see whether or not the Supreme Court denies the Gee case, meaning they don't need to hear it because they've already ruled, or, commands them to, or hears it to overturn Arkansas and Louisiana. And that's why it's very important that you have somebody who is at least aware of how a woman's life changes completely and utterly from the decisions she makes about education to where she'll work to when she'll get married, based on her freedom of choice, based on her freedom to plan her family. Otherwise, she's just pregnant and desperate and, let the chips fall where they may. So I don't think anybody, needs a better answer as to why we need a female in the Oval to protect my ovums. I don't think that you need a better explanation than that. We are always just one vote away from losing our ability to plan our lives. Jeremy in California.
Well, I don't think you have anything to
Can you take me off the speaker?
I'm not on the speaker.
Well, then that's a terrible phone.
Oh, sorry to hear that. Hey, so I called you to disagree with you regarding the abortion thing. Don't worry, it's never going to go away. This is like the #1 surgical procedure on the planet, or it's not the top 3. That's a lot of money. It's not just going to go away. Also, regarding presidential candidates, the Constitution is the standard. And so just because somebody is an elected politician doesn't mean that they're the answer. Sometimes it's we've had enough of that. And so it is time to get out the incumbents. If Kamala and company want to make a difference with insurance, maybe they should do it in the legislature, And, she's been in the legislature. Now all of a sudden she's for Medicare.
She's been in the legislature for 2 years.
Because it's polling. She's taking polling data.
She's taking polling data.
Right. That's why she's for it now.
That's why she's for it now. I don't really care why she's for it now, but she did sign on to Bernie's bill, so I don't think anything's changed there.
Well, here's the deal, though.
Bernie's bill is more than more than a year old. I don't think she just changed her mind. She's a co-sponsor of that bill.
So here's the deal. There's no problem with third parties. And just because you're afraid of the Democrats getting split and you're afraid of a third party,
listen, here's the thing.
That's ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. It will happen. It will happen. And it's the best. That phone. It is the best way to split the anti-Trump vote. It just is. And right now, we don't need that. And he is a Democrat. So, you know how you used to question how could Bernie be an independent and a Democrat? Yeah, well, that's the game that Howard's playing. Because Howard is a Democrat. He's been a Democrat. Now all of a sudden he's an independent. Why? And by the way, he doesn't know how to cut costs because a cup of his coffee costs $5. Len in Pompano.
Hi, happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
So the reason Howard and many others like him are afraid of Medicare for All is because they're worried about being online with everyone else.
No, that's probably true. But, there'll always be a private system, like MDVIP or concierge medicine. They don't have to wait in line with us.
My daughter went to the top doctor for an operation when she was 4, and I was sitting there with him asking, if my insurance didn't, how much are you getting for my insurance? Mm-hmm. He said about $4,000, and I said, how much would I be charged if you could afford it and walked in without insurance? He said about $7,000. So I said, well, why are you taking insurance then? He goes, because I wouldn't be busy enough without taking insurance. This guy loves to do his work, and I'm waiting for the politician to give the following scenario of a child growing up in the poor side of town who gets universal pre-K, goes to school from 8 till after school at 6 o'clock in the evening so the parent can go to work, gets breakfast and lunch and maybe even an early dinner at school, then gets free college and free medical school. And then that person works as a doctor with no loans to repay, no malpractice insurance to pay, no office to pay staff or paperwork shuffling.
Yeah.
And that person is taking care of you or your mother because she can. And, I'm waiting for a politician to just spell that out.
Yeah.
Because
I
that's
know.
how it works.
That is how it works. That's exactly how it works. There's no question that's how it works. And and that doesn't mean it works. It just means that's how it goes. So it doesn't work that way. Nobody is getting what they're supposed to get. Nobody is, when
that's how it works in all the democratic socialist countries.
Yeah. We are the only industrialized nation that doesn't guarantee our health. And in our Constitution, it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the right wing has co-opted life to mean a fetus. And once you're, they love the fetus, but they hate the child. I've said that for years. And that is the truth of their agenda. That is the truth of their platform. That is the truth of their policies. It's a ridiculous platform. Life means you're born, you're living, you're breathing. You have the right to not have your life taken away from you because somebody kills you or because you can't afford medicine. That's what life means.
Or you can't afford to travel to another state or another country to take care of an abortion overnight.
It's just a ridiculous. Their entire agenda is to make women, less than men, to enslave them, to make them chattel again, to make them not be able to sign a mortgage would be great for them. I'm sorry, those days are over. They are done.
Sooner than later.
And I would like to see progress. We are in the 21st century, and yet I don't feel we're in the 21st century. I'm not in the 21st century. There is nothing 21st century about any of this. We should, they got another one. President Trump gave his blessing Monday to lawmakers in several states who want to allow Bible class in public schools. Could you please? This is a man who says 2 Corinthians walk into a bar. Okay? What does he know? He knows nothing. He is a complete and utter fraud. He could have lived the rest of his life as a crooked businessman and philanderer, but no, he has to be the center of attention, and so he ran for president. The problem is he's now the center of attention of all these investigations, and he's getting mean. He's getting vindictive. It's impossible to imagine a more public way to go down than, like I said, he would be better off if he was an alcoholic or a cocaine addict, and then his collapse wouldn't have been so public, and people, would feel bad for him. But nobody's going to feel bad for him. He could have doused himself in gasoline and set himself on fire in front of the Ritz, and it would have been over in a few minutes. This drags on for years because corruption is so multifaceted. It reaches into everybody's business and life and no more of that. Buy a stinking podcast.